Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking about a topic that is near and dear to me that I don't think I've ever really shared on social media at all. And that is knowing and using your creative superpower online and for building your personal brand. So what does that even mean? We're gonna get into it, but as usual, I am going to be getting ready during this video. So I already did my skincare, so let's just get straight on into the routine. So if you're new here, then you probably don't know that I used to be a biomedical engineer before I was a full-time creator. And I was in graduate school when I started creating content, and I was mostly creating content about science, about my life. I did some sustainability content back then. I was just having fun on the internet, right? Creating content was my creative outlet. It was what I needed to really get me through my career because at the time I hated what I was doing. And one thing that kept happening to me over and over and over again when I was in the engineering space was that I would get ridiculed and scolded for making concepts too general, like speaking to a general audience when I was doing presentations. So anytime that I was practicing a presentation, I would explain the concept in a way where, as if I were explaining it to like my grandma or explaining it to, a sixth grader. So I simplified a lot of the concepts, and specifically in graduate school programs, there's a lot of how do I want to put this? There's a lot of elitism, I'll just say it. And a lot of the times whenever I was giving a presentation to a general audience of people who were not specialists or were not even in my industry, right? I would just be talking to them about my research. Anytime I would do that, I would get scolded for making it too simplified, for making it too simple, for not adding enough nuance, for being too general and blah, 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 blah. And it was constant, right? All the time and time again, it was always, oh, well, you didn't add enough detail here. You didn't have enough detail here. And my rebuttal to that every single time would be, well, this is a presentation for a general audience. Yes, these are people who are scientists, and I am talking about different scientific concepts. However, they don't know anything about maternal fetal health. So why would I give this insane detail where it's just not needed? And it's essentially just jargon for, to pretty much like gatekeep what is going on in the industry. I'm like, I never understood the concept of that. And one of the other things that I was also always ridiculed for. And these were things that were written on my IDP. So my annual, report every single year, I would get the same comments over and over again, right? So I would just be like, man, it is what it is. Because no matter what I do, you still gonna write the same shit about me anyway. So the other thing that I would get scolded for in my engineering job was being too social with people in a way that would take away from the science. The different scenarios that were given to me in these examples, because I did ask for examples of like, what does this even mean? How am I being too social? The examples that I were given were that I would lead with personal connections and lead with, I guess, building a rapport with people over the science. So if I were meeting someone at a conference, I would, compliment their shoes, or I would talk to them about something that was not anything about science. And then eventually I would talk to them about my science and, we would connect over research or whatever it may be, right? And apparently that was a flaw. And I thought it was actually really comical when that was brought up to me, was that I was just too social and I didn't focus enough on the science. That was exactly what was written. And I was like, what does that even mean? Because to me, any person that's a scientist has, interests outside of science. And I've said this before in another video, in that, your audience knows you're a multidimensional person. I behaved as if people knew that I was a multidimensional person. That even though I'm here for a science conference, I also really like fashion. I also really like pop culture. I also really like other topics that have absolutely nothing to do with science. And if I can connect with someone over those types of topics, then why not? Right? Because a lot of times when you go to these types of conferences, there are people that are very specialized in a certain subset of knowledge, or like a really, really, like a sub niche is the way to really explain it. And a way for me to connect people, even if I had no idea what their science was about, would just be talking to them about like life things, right? You would think like that would be a bonus or an advantage for me, because I could and had the ability to connect with people over topics that had nothing to do with science, but eventually would lead me to some type of science connection or research connection, or just, networking in general. Like that was my style and still is my style of networking. So fast forward now, I've been a creator for going on 5 years. I'm in the travel space, so I've stopped creating content about engineering, and I really talk a lot about content creation, education here on YouTube. And I also do a lot of travel content on my Instagram and TikTok. So I've been in this space for a while. And out of all the videos that I post on social media, my most popular content remains and always has been teaching content, where I'm teaching a concept to people. I'm breaking it down in a very digestible way for just the average person to understand. And specifically in my membership program, I do this with creator concepts, where I'm teaching people how to build their personal brand. But again, I make it so digestible that there's just no way that you can't understand it. And every single week I put out a video about this, in my membership program. Also in the travel space, I explain different concepts or different ways for you to get around. I explain how to use travel hacks to your advantage. Like, I am really great at explaining difficult concepts and making it so simple for anybody to understand who comes across my videos. And the other content that always takes off for me is the content where I'm just talking about my life experiences. I'm sharing something that probably has nothing to do with travel, but it's just like a story time video. And I'm able to connect people that I don't know, that I don't share any direct similarities with, people that may have different demographics for me. So they may be a different age, they may be a different background, they may be different ethnicity, they may be, different sexuality, whatever it may be. I have this way of connecting people in my content, in my storytime videos specifically, to make people feel something, to make them feel connected, and to really build this community. And that's the content that's really taken off for me. But the reason why I'm making this video is for you to discover what your superpower is. When I was an engineer, I was constantly scolded for what is now my superpower online. It's honestly really funny to me, because even though I was scolded for, making concepts too simple, or explaining things in a simplistic way, or, connecting people over everyday occurrences in, life, I fought back every time. I would be like, this is such a stupid reason for you to not like me, or for you to write this down on my annual report. Like, this does not change the actual science itself. So, all of this was like really dumb to me. And it wasn't something that I stopped doing. If anything, I had to somewhat force myself to try to change, and I couldn't change. So spoiler alert, is not going to change. But essentially, your superpower is typically character traits or the things that you were consistently scolded on. So if you think about back when you were in school, back when, you had to go to class or something, and your teachers will always write the same thing on your report cards, or they will always say the same thing to you, in the parent-teacher conferences, or anything that your boss may have said to you at different types of jobs that you have is probably similar concept that people have said to you over and over again. That is your superpower. And when you use your superpower to your advantage online, specifically creating content using that superpower, that is what is going to help take your content off and allow it to soar. And I can think of another example of this. There's a creator that I have seen on TikTok for years now. Well, I stopped seeing him for a while, and then all of a sudden he just popped back up my For You page after the whole TikTok 12-hour ban thing. So just goes to show that TikTok algorithm is totally, completely different, because I have not seen this man on my For You page in years. But this guy was essentially, I would say, a comedian creator. So he was always creating funny content and just talking about his life experiences, story times, but was always engaging and just very comedic. So he would do a range of skits. He would also just do, I think his story time videos are the ones that come up for me the most. But what's really interesting is that he started creating content when he was in college. And I remember seeing him like during this journey and this time where one of his teachers pulled him aside and said, "Hey, I've seen your TikTok content, and that's not going to fly here. You can't do that here." And in his videos, he wasn't showing anything in his schools, where he would talk about different, story times and things that happened while he was in school. And now he is someone who does like live events for his audience. So he will do different, like, I would say, like comedic podcasts and also prank videos that really soar for his audience. But in the classroom, he was considered the class clown, right? Teachers hated that he would, crack jokes in the middle of a session or in the middle of a class and stuff. And although like that is something that could be disruptive, so I can honestly see why teachers wouldn't like that. But it is his creative superpower, where every time one of his videos pop up, I'm like, oh, I know it's going to be hilarious. Like, I know he's going to tell a really funny story. He just has this very lighthearted attitude to him. Another example is just a few days ago, I was invited to the taping of the Jennifer Hudson show. And what's funny is that this is like a manifestation story. So I did tell a story on TikTok already, so I'm not going to go through it. But basically, I had always wanted to be at one of the tapings for the Ellen DeGeneres show. And the Ellen show was canceled a few years ago. well before I moved to LA. But I was invited to the Jennifer Hudson show, and I was like, oh, this is a really cool opportunity. I just want to go and see, right? So I got to meet some of the team members behind the scenes. I got a behind the scenes tour of the studio. And I also had to see the show of her with Usher. So it was really cool. It was such a great experience, right? And I did speak to one of the people, the PR people that invited me, and I said, hey, well, I guess about my content like made me stick out. And he was like, you just have such a lighthearted attitude. I was like, oh, you'll be perfect for this. Because if you think about the Ellen DeGeneres show or the Jennifer Hudson show, the audience is always like so interactive, so much fun. Like there's always people clapping, there's people dancing in the aisles. It's just like a really lighthearted show. And, to be a part of that audience, you gotta have like a fun personality, and not necessarily where all the attention is on you, but just be willing to like dance in the crowd or just like enjoy your time while you're there, right? And he was like, I don't know, I saw your content, and I was like, I think she would really have a good time on this show. So what's funny about this whole story is that when I first moved to LA and I was actually looking for managers, my manager ended up finding me, so that's a story for a wholly different time. But when I was actively searching for management, one manager actually said to me that they only take really serious influencers. And I was like, okay, what constitutes a serious influencer? I never signed with them, by the way, so don't be scared. It's okay. But I was like, what do you mean by serious influencer, right? And they were like, well, these are some of the influencers we work with. And, they showed me their Instagram profiles, all those things. And they were like, these are people that are take their online personas very seriously. And they tend to also be really into modeling, but, a lot of the creators don't really do like a lot of story time content, which was content that was popping off for me at the time. So, and they like to do a lot of like photography and just really like aesthetic content. And at the time, I wasn't really posting any aesthetic content. Like a lot of my content is my personality. So I was like, okay, so, what brought you of interest? Like what made you interested in me and, wanting to have this call and have this meeting? And they were like, well, we think you have the potential to be that type of influencer. And I was like, okay, so you want me to not have as much personality, not really do my story times, not do my get ready with me's, but really create more aesthetic content. And they were like, yeah, that's something that, our industry, our agency really highlights with our influencers. And I was like, thank you for, reaching out, but I don't think this is going to be a great agency fit for me. And lo and behold, it wasn't. But the reason why I told that story is because if I would have gone with that agency, if I would have started to do the things that they wanted me to do, as opposed to using my own creative superpower, then my content would be totally different. My audience would be different. Everything about my online persona would be totally different, right? But because I remained true to myself and being who I am and just having this vibrant personality online, it's actually what got me the invite to the Jennifer Hudson show, which I would say was so much fun. Like it's something that I will remember for years and years to come. So the point I'm trying to make here is that the thing that people are going to tell you that you shouldn't do is probably the thing that is going to help you soar and take off in your content. So whatever it is that people are like scolding you for, or telling you should be less of, that you should do less of, it's probably your sign to do it more. And to not only do it more, but to hone in into your content. Now, this is all within context. If you are someone that excessively curses in your content, like that may take off for you, right? But know that that's not something that is necessarily brand safe, right? So just things that you should consider, not necessarily things that you should stop, but just consider knowing that like if you continue doing certain things, it is going to impact your creator journey in certain ways. However, generally it is your superpower in some way. Like there are so many things about yourself that people may try to tell you that you should do, that you should change to fit into whatever, niche it is that you're in or whatever it is that you're doing. And a lot of times that one thing that you do is the thing that makes you stand out and the thing that makes you attractive and magnetic to your audience and to the people who really need to hear whatever it is that you have to say, whatever it is that you have to share, whatever your message is. That is the thing that you should hone in on and that you should continue to do throughout your content so that you can start to build your online persona. And again, it's different for everyone. Like I said, my content that really helped me soar and take off was a lot of my tutorial content, which I still do to this day. And then also a lot of my Get Ready With Me content, which I do mostly here on YouTube, but also occasionally on TikTok and Instagram. So whatever sticks to you, whatever is true to you, continue to do that thing. It is a thing that is going to carry you through. And a lot of times it is the skill that is the easiest for you. Like if you are someone that is just really funny and really great at making jokes, that's the thing that you should hone in on with your content, because that is what people are going to want to see from you, and that's what's going to draw people into you, and not just the people in your everyday life, but newer people who are seeing you for the very first time. The other thing that I really want to highlight in this video as I'm finishing up my mascara is that sometimes your audience will catch onto your superpower before you know it yourself, right? So I made a video previously about auditing your page and looking at your own content to see what's working and what isn't working. However, sometimes people will just tell you straight up in the comments or, in your DMs or whatever, like, I love this content from you. This is something that you should obviously be doing. Like, people typically see your superpower in you before you can see it in yourself. And I recently had a conversation with someone that I met in person about, like, I don't know what type of content to create. And what I told that person is, this is unpopular advice, but a lot of times you don't necessarily choose the content that you create. You may make a bunch of different types of videos, like you're throwing spaghetti at the wall at first, but your audience tends to decide the content that helps you soar because they're going to respond to it, right? So the videos that they respond to the most are the videos that you should keep recreating if you want to, build your profile and build your personal brand. However, if you decide that you don't want to create that content anymore, then that obviously is going to tank some of your numbers and like allow you to not grow as quickly. But a lot of times your audience will decide like, hey, we really love this content from you. And they will keep interacting with that same types of videos over and over again until you start to get it through your thick skull. Like, hey, keep making these same damn videos. If you don't make these videos, we're not going to interact. And that's just what it is. So even if you were new, actually, especially if you were new, really try a variety of content types, of different niches, of different styles, and see what sticks with your audience, because a lot of times they will see your superpower before you can even start to think or consider what your superpower would be. So hopefully this video was helpful for you guys in figuring out what it is that truly makes you stand out and makes you different, and that no one else online is already doing, so that you can build your own audience and a personal brand on social media. So if you like this video and want to hear more secret tips and strategies in the industry, make sure you check out my membership program that is linked on my profile, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.